A flash of light, green and brilliant, streaked across the sky above Toy Town. A moment later, a boom was heard. Something crashed on the hill. Two friends from Toy Town who were on the scene alerted the emergency services, who immediately rushed to the scene. Police, fire, ambulance, and air ambulance crews rushed to the scene. They reached the hill. They found a vehicle stuck in the ground, but no one knew what it was, and everyone was afraid. Suddenly, the military arrived towards the hill. Military vehicles, tanks, and helicopters arrived. Soldiers emerged from the vehicles. They immediately secured the entire area around the strange vehicle. Everyone was astonished by the situation. Reporter Dino immediately began recording news reports from the scene. Dino informs residents about the accident and the military that had arrived in Toy Town. Soldiers are checking the flying object. Mayor Tedy is also on the scene and asks Soldier Anthony what's going on. Anthony said that a UFO had crashed from space on this very hill. The soldier said the entire area was now closed. No one was to enter until they explained who they were. A UFO. A real spaceship. It was round and glowed with different colors. All the residents of Toy Town were very curious. One of the soldiers noticed that most of the ship was buried deep underground. Soldiers gathered and tried to pull it out. Some dug with shovels, while others tried to pull the spaceship out of the ground. But it was no use. The ship didn't even move. Soldier Anthony contacted Mayor Tedy for help. Tedy said they had heavy equipment in the construction district and could try to help. Tedy called Bob. He agreed to help. He called his team and headed up the hill. Bob arrived at the scene. The military moved the barriers aside so they could arrive. Bob's team began work. Excavators began digging into the ground. The bulldozers were removing sand. They finally managed to partially excavate the ship. Bob secured a rope to the ship and the cart. They tried to pull it out. However, the rope broke. The spaceship remained in place. Bob approached the hole where the ship was. He saw the spaceship embedded in the rock. He realized that this prevented them from pulling it out. He decided to call in Sophie, a puppet who helps him build various things. Sophie appeared. She looked around the ship and started to help. She grabbed the ship and pulled, but the ship wouldn't budge. She decided to pull again. It worked. Sophie pulled the spaceship out and placed it on a hill. The military was very grateful for the help. Suddenly, the ship began to flash. A strange fog appeared, and aliens emerged from the ship. Everyone was terrified. The soldiers instantly gathered around the aliens, thinking they were planning to attack Toy Town. They started talking, but no one understood them. The soldiers wondered what they were saying. Then Sophie decided she knew how to fix the problem. She would build 3,000 alien translators. Everyone was surprised by Sophie's idea, but they agreed it could be done. The team arrived at their base. Sophie immediately gave instructions on what to bring. The team quickly brought the necessary supplies. Sophie began construction. Finally, they succeeded. Bob and his team carefully loaded the machine onto the truck and headed back up the hill. They arrived at their destination. At the site, the UFO remained, surrounded by soldiers. Bob set up the machine. Soldier Anthony asked the aliens to start talking again.
Hello there.
It worked. The machine was working. Now everyone understood what the aliens were saying to them. The aliens introduced themselves as Rob, Bob, and Mob. They came from the planet Egg. While flying over Earth, they experienced a malfunction. Their ship had just crashed in Toy Town. The soldiers realized the creatures were harmless. Their help was no longer needed.
Adios.
They handed over control of the situation to Mayor Tedy. All the soldiers gathered and headed for the military base. Tedy asked the creatures if they needed help. Singh said that without their help, they wouldn't be able to return home. He told them about the entire situation that had occurred in space. During the flight, a screw holding the ship's body loosened. This caused them to lose control of the ship and have an accident. Suddenly, Sophie remembered that she had just such tools. She had obtained them in the human world. Within moments, she began repairing the ship. They succeeded. The spaceship was repaired. As they said goodbye, they said they would return to visit their new friends. They said goodbye and boarded the ship. They launched their ship and returned to their home planet. But suddenly a storm broke out. Lightning struck the dock, which started to burn. The space flight was cancelled. The fire department was called to the scene. The firefighters tried to get to the scene as quickly as possible, but a fallen tree was lying in their way. Firefighter Tom dealt with the problem in a very short time, and the firefighters were able to go to the scene. Firefighter Tom arrived at the scene. He immediately decided to climb a ladder to assess the situation. After reaching the launch site, it turned out that additional fire trucks from the area would be needed. Firefighter Jack and Michael arrived as quickly as they could. The firefighters put out the fire together. But that was not the end of the day's events. They received information from the rabbit's mother that the forest was on fire and had been destroyed. The firefighters set off. They reached the forest and immediately began putting out the fire. After putting out the fire, they took care of the fallen trees. Fortunately, the storm stopped. It was a difficult day for the firefighters. But they managed to put out the fires and are very happy because they know that after every storm comes a rainbow. A few days passed and the sun was shining in Toy Town again. The neighbors Nicholas and Jacob decided to play pirates today. They met near their houses and went to the bus stop together. The bus was driving on its daily route.
Hello!
It let Rob pass on the crossing. At the bus stop, in addition to the rascals, there were also pandas waiting. They got on it and went to the pier. Getting off the bus, they noticed that an amusement park was coming to town. They watched for a few moments as Bob helped set up all the equipment. Among the attractions were a carousel, a Ferris wheel and a bear figure. They decided that they would later come to the amusement park for some fun. After a few moments, they decided to move on and went to the pier to play brave pirates. Suddenly, on the horizon, they noticed something unusual. A drifting ice floe that was slowly approaching the shore. Terrified penguins were standing on the ice floe, holding on to each other. Jacob quickly ran for help. Soon the emergency services arrived on the scene. The fire department, police, and ambulance. Firefighter Tom assessed the situation and decided that there would be no help from the air. He immediately called a helicopter. At that moment, a strong storm broke out again. The wind and rain made the rescue operation difficult. However, in such difficult conditions, the helicopter continued to try to save the penguins. He managed to save 2 penguins. But there was still 1 penguin left on the floe. The floe began to rock dangerously. In this situation, Fireman Tom decided to sail for the penguin in a motorboat. The storm at sea was violent, but the fireman managed to safely swim to the raft. Fortunately, Fireman Tom came to help in a motorboat. He managed to safely take the penguin to the shore. Dr. Anna was already waiting there, who immediately took the penguins to the hospital to examine them thoroughly and ensure their warmth and safety. In the hospital, the penguins explained to Dr. Anna and Mayor Tedy that there had been a storm at the pole and a piece of the floe had separated from the rest. That was how they found themselves in the open sea. After a few days, the penguins returned to the pier, looking for their floe.
Hello!
Nicholas and Jacob, saddened, told them that the floe had broken up during the storm. The penguins nodded sadly, but they were not left alone with their problem. Their friends offered the penguins help to get back home. The penguins, charmed by the heroic attitude of firefighter Tomek, went to him together with Nicholas and Jacob. Tom listened to the children and nodded. The ice floe cannot be repaired, but he will try to help them. The firefighter decided to build a raft. Remembering Diana's expedition to the human world, he decided to go to them in order to find a strong rope that would connect the elements of the raft. Tom and the other firefighters went through the magic mirror to the human world. Knowing what awaited them here, they quickly closed ranks and went to look for the rope. They opened cabinet after cabinet until they finally found the rope in one of them. Happy, they took it with them to Toy Town. At the base on the square, they started building the raft. Yay! After a few moments, they had it ready. They called Bob for a dump truck to transport it to the pier. Bob was delighted with the construction that the firefighters had made. He packed the raft and went to the pier. After the transport, everyone together took down the raft and placed it by the pier so that the penguins could return home. Yay! On the day the penguins returned, the entire town gathered at the pier. The raft was ready, and everyone was waiting for the big moment. The penguins thanked the firefighters for helping them. Mayor Tedy presented the firefighters with hero medals for their services in helping the penguins and during the fires. On the other hand, the penguins were suggested by Teddy the bear to stay in Toy Town permanently and take care of the city ice cream shop. The penguins jumped for joy. A moment later, the ice cream shop gained new owners, and the news spread throughout the city. Now you can eat the best ice cream in the world in Toy Town, straight from the penguins. Rico decided to go for a walk with his dogs in the forest. In the forest, he met his friend Dino. During their walk, they came across a mysterious cave. Suddenly, one of the dogs burst in and began barking. The echo echoed off the stone walls, carrying deep into the darkness. After a moment, the dog ran out of the cave unharmed, but behind his barking came strange, menacing sounds, like hissing. Rico looked anxiously toward the entrance, and that's when he saw it. From inside the cave, slowly, very slowly, began to emerge a huge snake. A long, writhing, green snake. The friends were terrified, but they managed to recover and hid with the dogs behind some rocks. Fortunately, the snake didn't notice them and continued slithering. Dino knew he had to act. He told Rico to wait behind the rocks with the dogs, and he would run to warn the others. He ran to his cabin in the woods, turned on his laptop, and started a live broadcast. He warned all the residents of Toy Town, "Warning! Don't leave your homes. A huge snake is approaching the town." The residents of Toy Town panicked and began hiding in their homes and seeking safety. All emergency services were put on alert. Thanks to Dino's warning, emergency services immediately sprang into action. Firefighters, police officers, and paramedics roamed the streets of Toy Town, searching for the snake. But no one could find it. The helicopter from the air also failed to spot the snake, leaving everyone wondering where it could have gone. Mayor Tedy called Dino to inform residents not to leave their homes, as the snake had disappeared. The search operation moved to the forest. All emergency services descended on the forest. One of the firefighters climbed to the top of the cave to look around, but he didn't see the snake. The police car and Dr. Anna were discussing where the snake might be. The snake must have been cunning, because no one could find it. On the farm, Farmer Henry was watching the news with Dino. After a few moments, he remembered a story his grandfather had told him. It was about an Indian tribe inhabiting remote lands. In this tribe lived an Indian who could charm snakes. He decided to find a portal, hoping it would transport him to the Indian land. He called Rico for help. Rico agreed to help. He said that the portal should be found by Bolt, his dog, who has a very keen sense of smell. The two met at the farm and headed towards the forest. Suddenly, Bolt caught the scent. They followed it. It turned out that the scent led to the cave from which the snake had come. Henry and Rico decided that the snake must have just entered the toy store through a portal. So they entered the cave and indeed, found a portal inside. They passed through it and found themselves in a different land. After a moment of disorientation, they began to look around. Around them was a vast meadow, dotted with purple bushes. But then they noticed something and couldn't believe what they were seeing.
Oh!
They saw dinosaurs.
Wow!
Several of them were heading towards them. They were herbivorous dinosaurs, and they even greeted him.
Hi!
Just then, a car pulled up beside them. A figure got out and introduced itself as a ranger. He said that a T-Rex was heading that way and would have to escape. Henry and Rico got into the car and fled. A short distance away, they stopped to talk. Henry explained where they were from and what they were doing there. However, the ranger worried them. He said there were no Indians here.
Oh no!
This was dinosaur country. Rico decided to use Bolt again to find another portal. The ranger offered to help. Together they set off to find the portal. Finally they found it. Henry and Rico said goodbye to the ranger and said they might meet again someday. They passed through the portal and went to the next land. They awoke in the middle of a lake. They began looking around through binoculars until they finally spotted something. They succeeded. They found an Indian camp. They decided to go there. Walking toward the camp, several Indians rode up to them. They asked what they were doing there. Henry explained the whole story. The Indians led Henry and Rico to their camp. In the camp, the Indian chief heard the whole story again and agreed to help. He called upon an Indian named Snake Eye to come with them. Henry and Rico thanked him and headed back toward the portal. They finally reached the portal, hoping it would take them straight to Toy Town. They began to walk through the portal one by one. They succeeded. They found themselves on Henry's farm. Henry got into his tractor, along with Snake Eye and Rico. They set off in search of the snake. The Indian began playing a tune known only to himself on his flute. After a moment, he began pointing in the direction they should go. They drove towards the city. In the city, Snake Eye ordered the group to stop in front of Frank's house. He got out of the car and began playing his tune. Suddenly, something began to move in the grass. A snake emerged from the grass and headed towards the houses. Until finally, it wrapped itself around one of the tall skyscrapers in the city center. The team followed it. Rico called the authorities to notify them of the snake's location. Everyone immediately gathered at the skyscraper. They began to devise a plan. Snake Eye offered to use the melody to lure the snake directly to Henry's car, and together they would take it back to the portal to the dinosaur world where it originated. The authorities secured the route and the surrounding area. Snake Eye began playing. The snake slowly descended the skyscraper. Finally, it climbed onto Henry's tractor. They decided to drive while he continued to play his flute. Finally, they reached the portal. The Indian escorted the snake to the portal, through which it returned to its own world. Everyone was very happy that the danger had finally been overcome. Thanks to their joint efforts, the entire operation was a success. After some time, the Indian decided to return to his own world. Deputy Mayor Tedy and Diana organized the farewell ceremony. She thanked everyone who helped with the operation. From now on, Dino relays the most important information to everyone, and the first television station was established in Toy Town. Jacob and Nicholas were walking through the Builders District, where construction work is underway. There, on a high mound of sand, they spotted a raft that Bob had prepared for the penguins. The boys immediately had an idea. What if they could sail it out to sea? So they went to Fireman Thomas to ask for permission to use the raft. On the way, they passed Rico, who had come to refuel his car. The fireman was washing the fire truck. Thomas said they could take the raft as long as they used it only under adult supervision.
Thank you!
The happy boys ran back. Meanwhile, Bob began the planned dismantling of the raft into new parts and making room for the tower. The boys were saddened when they saw the raft was gone, as they had longed to sail out to sea. The next morning, a cheerful bustle reigned on the pier. The residents of Toy Town had gathered on the pier in their cars. Tedy announced that today was the fishing competition. Everyone placed their bets on who would win the competition. The competition began.
Steady, go!
Suddenly, they heard a strange sound behind them. Another portal opened in the middle of the square, and from it stepped a real pirate. Wow! He introduced himself as Captain Hook, a visitor from Pirate Island.
Amigo.
Nicholas and Jacob were speechless. They had met a real pirate. Captain Hook, seeing their delight, offered them a cruise on his pirate ship. The boys couldn't refuse. Princess Diana also joined the expedition and decided to look after the boys. They all passed through the portal together and within moments stood on the deck of a large ship, ready for their voyage. Captain Hook promised to take them to his mysterious pirate island. The journey was peaceful, until suddenly, Princess Diana spotted a shark in the water. The large predator was rapidly approaching the ship. Captain Hook called everyone to their positions. But it was Diana who showed the greatest courage. She grabbed a bucket full of fish and threw it as far away from the ship as possible. The shark, intrigued by the delicious morsel, sailed away. The ship was saved. The captain was impressed and asked if Diana would like to become a pirate. But the princess only smiled and replied that her place was in Toy Town, close to her friends. After a while, Jacob spotted Pirate Island through his telescope. But suddenly, a storm broke out at sea. Lightning flashed, strong winds, and rain. The ship rocked. The boys were very afraid of this weather. Captain Hook made sure to sail on course. Suddenly, lightning struck the mast. The ship caught fire. Pirate Hook quickly gathered the men and took them to the lifeboat. As they set sail, they saw their beloved pirate ship sinking.
Oh no!
They managed to reach the shore of the island. The storm finally abated. Captain Hook was very sad. Jacob and Nicholas said they knew who would be able to build a new ship. Bob. Diana took them through the portal on the island back to Toy Town. Upon reaching their destination, they went directly to Bob to ask for help. However, they had to wait, because Bob and his team were building a tower. They failed, and the tower toppled over. So they called in Max the puppet for help. He was sure he would succeed. After talking to Bob, Max got to work. In a few moments, the tower was erected. The bulldozer was already filling the bottom of the tower to prevent it from toppling over. Now Bob could listen to Diana and the boys. The search party gathered and set off on their Riyadh, listened to the story, and immediately agreed to help. He said that such a large structure would require the help of Max the puppet, who agreed to help. They all decided to return to the island through the portal and build a ship there. They gathered the necessary tools and immediately set out for the portal. Once there, they immediately got to work. Captain Hook announced that the new ship would need a new rudder. He buried it in the land of the dinosaurs. However, he had a treasure map leading to it. He asked Diana and the boys if they would go with him on a treasure hunt. Jacob and Nicholas happily agreed. So they all set off together. They found the right portal and made their way to the world of the dinosaurs. They followed the map until they finally found the right place, where the treasure was buried. Diana began digging. They succeeded. The princess pulled a chest from the ground. Inside was indeed a rudder. He said it was the rudder of the ship of the most dangerous pirate, Captain Blackbeard. Turn journey. Along the way, they passed various dinosaurs. They finally returned to Pirate Island. The ship was ready. Captain Hook was delighted with his new vessel. Only one thing was missing. A new rudder, which he immediately installed. He thanked everyone for their help and immediately told everyone to get on board, because a pirate adventure awaited them. Together they boarded the ship and set sail. It was a beautiful sunny day in Toy City. Residents were chatting in the street. The city was bustling with life, and its inhabitants, the toys, were going about their daily business. The fox and the panda were going to the bus stop. There was a lot of traffic in the city. Everyone had something to do. The bus was going on its daily route. From the bus stop, it picked up the fox and the panda, who were going to the pier. In the market square, the bear Tedy, the mayor of the city, was walking, greeting everyone with a smile on his way. Tedy decided to go to Rico and his dogs. On the way, he greeted the snail mark. Toy City was a place full of joy and friendship, but that day something completely unusual was going to happen. Suddenly, in the forest, just outside the city, something mysterious appeared. The pandas went for a walk in the forest. There was no end to the fooling around. In the distance, the pandas saw something strange. Noticed a flickering light and an unusual aura hovering above the ground. Concerned, they decided to go to the city for help. One of them went to Mayor Tedy to inform him of the discovery. The panda learned from the residents that Tedy was in the parking lot and that was where he had gone. The bear decided to call the services. An alarm sounded at the base. The police, ambulance and fire department went to the scene. Even a helicopter took to the air to help in the operation. On the way to the forest, Tedy and the panda were caught in the rain in the city, so they decided to get there as quickly as possible. Soon, a lot of toys gathered at the edge of the forest, watching with interest. Something sparkled, and a moment later a small car appeared on the ground. The unusual discovery turned out to be a portal.
Huh?
The car looked lost. The residents came closer, wondering who the new arrival was. The car introduced itself as Roby and that it came from the world of racing cars. Tedy the bear, seeing that Roby was feeling uneasy, decided to show him around Toy City to show him what a wonderful place it was. Walking slowly through the city, Tedy showed Roby the houses in the area. Since Roby was a car, he drove on the road and even let the bear pass on the crosswalk. The first stop was a farm. Tedy and Roby were heading to the barn, where they were to meet a farmer. He was a livestock farmer in the city. Farmer Hen had just brought cows to the pasture. Roby was delighted with the idyllic view. Everyone had their place here and worked together to take care of the animals. Hen led the cows out of the trailer and into the pasture.
Hello.
Then he drove the trailer out of the barn and prepared the horse for transport to the races. Next, Tedy took Roby to the builder's district, where the chief builder Bob supervised the work in the toy factory. During the walk, excavators were visible, carrying sand and other construction machinery. One of the excavators had just arrived at the construction site. It was to load sand for the construction of a new space rocket launch site. Tedy took Roby to the main building of the builders, and then they entered it, where Bob was waiting for them. Bob told Roby that in Toy City, toys were made from materials that could be found in every house, which greatly intrigued the new resident. Currently, Bob was making a toy from a pacifier. To help him create a new toy, Bob called the puppets Max and Sophie for help. Sophie appeared. She grabbed a hammer and immediately got to work. Then Max appeared and helped with the work as well. With each passing moment, Roby felt better and better, but he still had a secret. He was afraid that if the residents saw his true form, they might not accept him. However, he decided to muster up the courage and show his face. He transformed into a robot. The toys reacted with surprise, then joy. They had never seen a robot in Toy City before. Roby was happy, but suddenly he felt his leg loosen. He began to wobble and fell. Teddy Bear immediately called an ambulance. The ambulance with Dr. Anna arrived at the scene in the blink of an eye. Sophie helped transport the robot to the ambulance.
Bye-bye.
Dr. Anna, driving to the sound of a siren, took Roby to the hospital as quickly as possible. Dr. Anna quickly got to work and repaired the damaged part. She smiled warmly and assured him that everyone helped each other in Toy City. Roby breathed a sigh of relief, but still wondered, could he really stay here? When he returned to the city, a surprise awaited him. All the residents gathered in the market square to welcome him. Teddy Bear announced that every toy had its place in Toy City, no matter where it came from or what it looked like. Roby jumped for joy. He already knew he had found a new home. The toys organized a small party in his honor, and he felt that he had never been so happy.